Welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast, folks. We have a great show in store for you today. We sit down with an emotional intelligence expert to find out a little bit about what it is and how you can use it in your everyday life. But first,
hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Today with Tally. The mission and goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Today with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the evening, Mr. Brian Tally.
retired U.S. Marine veteran Dimyas Perdue is no stranger to the program. The last time he was on, he was very deep into writing a book, and he was, just getting out of retirement and starting his civilian career and trying to connect all those dots there to live the life that he wants to live in that successful realm post-service. And I do want to refer to episode 114 was the first time that we had Dimyas Perdue on the show. It's a great episode, and I definitely recommend you go listen to that, perhaps prior to even listening to this one, to get to know a little bit about Dimyas Perdue, his story from a child, what led him into the Marine Corps, what type of Marine he was and became, and where he has taken his life ever since. So with that, we are honored to be joined by U.S. Marine combat veteran, author, and emotional intelligence expert, Dimyas Perdue. How are you, sir?
Man, I am doing good, and it is great to see you again. Doing great.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. You and your brother, James Cabarrus, are two of my favorite people. When I'm feeling down, I go back and I listen to those clips that you guys always preach because, I've got to motivate myself every single day. A guy that lives in chronic pain, such as myself. And, with everything, all the craziness we got going on in our world, sometimes we got to just get back on that X.
100%. 100%.
Oh, absolutely. And it takes fine men, such as yourself and folks like Sergeant Major James Cabarrus to help individuals like me and many others out there achieve that, to get back on that X and to, achieve the success and everything that we want, to accomplish in this walk we call life. So the last time we had you on the show, like I said, man, you were knee deep in a book. Man, you were trying to get all this information out there. You were shuffling papers. And what's life been like for Dimyas Perdue since the last time you were on the show?
I got to tell you, the busyness hasn't stopped. But before we dive into what life has been like for me, I've got to talk about what it's been like for me on the outside since that episode, watching Today with Tally. It has been phenomenal watching you grow in this, watching the show grow, being able to gain so much knowledge from the people that you've had on the show. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you. Thank you for stepping out and doing this, because your reach is extending so far that I don't think right now you have the ability to really be able to appreciate it. But from the outside looking in, and even coming back into now my second appearance on it, I just got to tell you, thank you for doing what you're doing. I love the growth. I love the development. And it is truly an honor for me to be back here with you again. So, but when you look at what's been happening, so the last time I was here, I was in the process of the book, but the book officially got published on my birthday, August the 4th last year, and officially released out to the world November 10th this last year. So I made sure to do those 2 dates. Pre-sale started on my birthday, and November 10th is when we went live for the rest of the world.
Hey, man, thank you so much for your kind words. That sincerely means a lot to me. There's some men out there in this world that their opinion really does matter to me, and I do value yours. And
thank you for that.
To come right out and to honor me in such a way, it does mean the world to me. And I have really dedicated my life to doing this podcast. It's something that God put on my heart, and I've ran with it. You are episode 207 in 16 and a half months. And I plan on continuing to build this into what I see as my vision, and to really adding that real life value to the lives of everyday people. And it takes folks like you that can bring so much meaningful content to the table to perhaps get into the hearts and minds of millions and change the way they think. Emotional intelligence. Explain exactly what emotional intelligence is.
Yeah, I think a great way to really talk about that is you just use the word vision for what you're going through. And you've got sight and you've got vision, right? And you had this vision for yourself. You have this vision for the business, the vision for what Today with Tally is supposed to be in the long run. And in order for you to be able to have that vision, that starts with one of the first key components of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness, knowing who you are, where you are, how you're feeling, and the ability to recognize where you're feeling at that time. But to really break it down before I go into the skills of emotional intelligence, I would just like to, for the people who may not know what it is, I want to share what the definition of it is. I have the pleasure of being able to work with a phenomenal company, Talent Smart EQ, and we're a premier emotional intelligence company. And by definition, we speak of it as the ability to recognize and understand the emotions in yourself and others, and then more importantly, being able to use that newfound awareness to be able to manage your relationships and your behavior. And so when we look at emotional intelligence, or EQ, what we call it for short, it's just being able to see where I am, how I'm feeling in the moment, and not just considering Dimyas, not just considering Brian, but me also considering everybody else and their emotions, and more importantly, managing those to be this one key word we always talk about, being effective. How effective am I in my personal life? How effective am I in my professional life? How effective am I at recognizing how other people experience me, and how well I'm able to pick up on how my family, my other loved ones, and my coworkers, how they're feeling. That's what EQ is really all about.
Interesting. Now, how do you apply this to the outside world? Is this something that you sit down individually with folks on, or do you travel the country speaking to large audiences? Who is your target audience, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question, because many people, when they first hear the term emotional intelligence, they're like, oh no, I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of this emotional thing. I don't want to sit down and be crying and talking about my feelings, but that's a big misunderstanding, because I spend my time doing everything from keynotes for major organizations, group coaching sessions, individual coaching sessions to help individuals develop their emotional intelligence, even sitting down with businesses and different teams and doing training, anywhere from 4 hours to 8-hour training sessions. As a matter of fact, I'm taking off today because tomorrow I'm going to be delivering a 2-day program for a banking organization, doing 2 days of emotional intelligence for some of their senior leaders. So it's ideal for everybody. But the question is, where are you in your headspace? And can you be in a position to receive the information in order to be able to use it in the long run?
So it's safe to say that you are called upon to speak in front of a lot of CEOs and a lot of chairmen and a lot of bosses, if you will, and then they relay that information down to their employees and their staff to create a better work environment, so on and so forth. Happy office, great profits,
and that's exactly what it is. It's not just, we've started working with organizations from bottom up, And then we also have ambassadors in the C-suites, like you just mentioned, who are just advocates for the program. And when they bring us in, it's beautiful because you watch the culture shift.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the culture shift, because that's the moment where they recognize, what, although this was acceptable behavior in this space, this doesn't fly on this side, especially, consider the military. There are certain things that we say and do in the military that just really wouldn't fly in the corporate world. And it's important for people, even within that transition process, for them to understand that, learning things about themselves. So we teach everything from individual EQ to team emotional intelligence as well, because it's not just about how you operate and how you act. It's also how the team receives you. So, you know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing, man. Like I said, it lives everywhere.
You certainly can't be throwing down some of that old core dark humor in some
Certainly.
corporate function. As you're throwing down a keynote, they'll be like,
right.
Holy smokes,
Yeah,
this guy's very well rounded.
Yeah. 100%, man. 100%.
So what is the most common question that you get from these very respectable and very intelligent folks that you're in there preaching and teaching this information to? What do they take back to their people, again, to relay that message? And what sort of questions, like, do they say, hey, look, I'm having a lot of problems in my office because of X, Y, and Z, and how can you help me? How can you elaborate on this specific subject? What is the most talked about in your keynote addresses and the education that you apply in teaching emotional intelligence?
Yeah. So when we're doing keynotes, the focus is really on hitting certain high points, and that's based on what the leadership may want. But when we're doing the training, one of the main questions that we get is, how do I manage the moments where we like to call when I'm emotionally hijacked? How do I control those moments when I act out and I'm not my best self? How do I manage myself when I'm driving to work on I-95 or I-10, right? And somebody lays on the horn behind me and I really want to give them a piece of my mind? Those are the things people really want to be able to learn how to control. How do I control that immediate response? How do I control that immediate fight or flight when I'm frustrated and I really want to let somebody know a piece of my mind? Do I give them a piece of my mind, or do I effectively communicate? Because there's a way to do both. There's a way to tell them exactly how you feel, but doing it in a way that doesn't, one, destroy your career, or two, destroy the relationship. And so the biggest thing they want to know is, how do I operate best in the moments where I may be in a heightened emotional state?
Give me an example of a road rage incident and somebody just cuts you off, and then they throw the brakes on, and it becomes a very volatile type situation, which we see tens and thousands of times every single day in the United States of America. Driving is insane, and 99% of the time, somebody's going to react in it could be a violent way or at least a derogatory way.
Of course.
Put me in the mind of the person in the car who's upset, who's getting ready to flip off the person, roll down their window and give them a piece of their mind, or even stop at a stoplight, get out and engage. Give me an example on how emotional intelligence can work into the mind of that crazed individual who's angry.
Yes. So I'm going to talk about this. Here's one thing I love doing. I don't just like to talk about theory. I love talking about experience, because I've been the guy on both sides of the road rage. We all have, you know what I mean? In total transparency, because I think in order to really get someone to understand, or to be on the other side of the microphone or the platform, to be able to speak about something, it's so important to have some real lived experiences to be able to talk about it. So I've been that person on the side, laying on the horn, hurry up and get out of the way. But I've also been on the receiving end of somebody giving me the middle digit, right? and me feeling some type of way about it. And so I have reacted in a way that I wasn't proud of on many occasions prior to gaining the level of emotional intelligence I have to be able to do best in those moments. So the question is, what can somebody do in the moment where they're in that road rage situation and somebody is just laid on the horn, flicked them off, cut them off, slammed on the brake checked them? What can they do? The best way for me to help them understand what they need to do, first and foremost, we have to consider something that we don't consider. I want to break it down from brain science. Everything we experience, no matter what it is, good, bad, or indifferent, we receive the signal at the base of our brain in the form of a stimulus. From there, it moves into what's known as the limbic system. This is where our emotions live. When we don't act in that moment, it allows it to pass to what's known as the rational brain, our prefrontal cortex up here, right? That's where rational thinking happens. And the goal is for us not to react until we're able to assign meaning by pairing the limbic system and rational thinking. But the problem that happens, Brian, in this situation is most people, once the stimulus happens, the laying on the horn, once the brake check happens, right away, we act through the limbic system. And it's an emotional response. It can only be an emotional response because we have not allowed it to get to rational thinking to be able to assign meaning to it. But the goal is to do what I like to call I call it the traffic light model. When you're not familiar or you're not comfortable and you're not strong at managing your emotions, when you're faced with those situations, you need to red light your emotions and your actions. Because if you green light it, we know what happens when it's a red light and you should stop and you green light it. It can be catastrophic. And so until you start to develop the skills necessary to be able to handle those situations, i.e., recognizing that you're in a heightened emotional state, realizing that you can only control one thing, and that's your actions in this situation, and that nobody controls you. Yes, they brake checked you, but they don't control your actions and your behavior after that. So the goal for that person is to, one, recognize what's actually happening, acknowledge the fact that you're upset, but think about the consequences of your actions before you make this decision. Because chances are the person who's on the other side, you have no idea if they just got the worst phone call of their life. You've got no idea if they have just lost a loved one. And what is it worth to you? Is it worth getting out there just to go and talk with the maniac or to go and show who's the biggest and the baddest? Or is it worth you going back home to your son and your daughter and your bride or your husband safe and sound in one piece? Because chances are the person that was doing that, by the time they get a mile away from you, they've already forgot about the incident because that's just their character. And our job is not to allow them to take up mental real estate in our mind, not to allow them to have our mental liberties. They brake check you, get off the brakes, let them go on. That's the emotionally intelligent way of being able to manage that conflict in that situation. So I know that's a pretty long answer, but I really wanted to break it down for all of our listeners that we may have on here.
No, that's very good, because a very high percentage of these people are skipping and they're jumping right over that first step.
Yeah.
And they're going right into engaging in a way that is going to a lot of the times result in your anxiety levels getting, your heart's pounding, and you've got that adrenaline. And again, you've got that, type A type personality, and you're like, no,
right.
So, I mean, but again, like somebody once told me, don't ever mess with somebody who may be crazier than you, because a lot of the times these folks don't have anything to lose.
Nothing to lose.
And a guy like myself, I have everything to lose. 4 beautiful kids, a wife of over 25 years, a home, animals, and a good, solid foundation and a life. And it takes a split second to make a very bad decision. And I know a lot of the times I sometimes will get very angry on the roads.
Yeah.
And I think this episode is
Yeah.
going to really do me well.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes here, because again, I am a rational guy. I do put a lot of things in that rational headspace. But when something happens in that split second,
Yes.
like our natural state of mind says you need to get angry. And fighting that anger is hard. I mean, that right there takes a lot of practice. So when I start to go out, because I live in Houston where it's just nuts. And a lot of times I just ignore it because it's just so bad. I'm like, I'm not even going to engage with that guy's nuts.
Right.
But it's hard not to get upset when people are just doing the stupidest things out there and they're putting my life at risk.
So
they're putting my kids' life at risk. And again, when I start going out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I am going to make myself mentally aware that if somebody does something on the road that's going to upset me, I will not react. And I will challenge myself to that. I will start challenging myself to do what Dimyas said. Don't react until we know everything and that everything's been put on the table. We get a mile down the road, everything's good. Your heart rate's down, your anxiety's down. That guy's 10 miles down the road, and he'll be somebody else's problem in the next 15 to 20 minutes. And if everything works out right with the universe, karma will get the best of that guy. And I'm going to come home with my wife, my kids, have a good dinner, pet my dogs, go to bed, and wake up the next morning, having some coffee, and sitting down having a podcast with a guy like Dimyas Perdue.
Come on. You can only control your controllables. And the only thing you can control in that situation is you. Here's something I want to add to what we were just talking about. You mentioned not wanting to get angry. Listen, anger is one of the basic emotions that you face. Mm-hmm. I'm not concerned as much with the anger because that's a natural thing. It's okay for you to get angry. It's okay for it to bother you. What's not okay is to have a negative behavior associated with that emotion. And that's what I really want people to understand. You got to think about it. Being happy is an emotion. So the way I show that happiness is anything from smiling, laughing, hugging someone. There are a myriad of ways I can express that emotion of happiness. So it's okay for me to be happy. It's okay for me to be sad. It's okay for me to be angry because typically if I'm angry, there was probably a violation of something I valued. For example, we're on the road, my safety, my family's safety. So it's okay for me to be angry in that situation. It is not okay for me to have a response that's not effective. That's what it's about.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's self-talk too. You get cut off. Okay, I just got cut off. I'm not going to react. I'm angry right now, but I can't show this anger because if I show this anger, it may take me to a place that I don't want to go back to because I'm afraid of that guy.
Right.
And that guy could be yourself.
Absolutely.
Because, we all know that, you're a Marine. I'm a Marine. And plus, we are alphas and we're protectors. And you can't just remove that from somebody because it's in our DNA. But we can control our emotions, and that at the end of the day, it shows more courage and it shows more that mind, that body, that spirit, and really that what's the word I'm looking for here? Heck, I don't know the word, but it's a very important one.
It is easy. It's easy to click off safe.
Yeah.
That's easy. But think about it from this standpoint of firing weapons, right? You have to own that round when it leaves the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
You have to own that. And we have many times fired off rounds of emotions that we wish we could recall. That we wish we wouldn't have clicked off safe on. Sometimes when we're not experienced, we go straight to burst and we're just firing them off. and we're just leaving other people to go and pasty up those shot holes. But it takes a lot. It takes a lot to be able to do that. And I love that you mentioned self-talk, because that's one of the key emotional intelligence strategies when it comes to self-management. Self-management is about being able to, I just said, control your controllables, right? I have to be able to, first and foremost, be aware of how I'm feeling when whatever the stimulus was, when my bride yelled at me for something, when the kids did something I didn't like, when my supervisor got on me. I showed up late to work and he said, "Why are you always late?" But the reality is I'm not. It was an accident on the road. There are so many different things that happen that can cause that, but you have to manage your self-talk. If your self-talk is negative, it will only yield a negative result in your actions.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have positive self-talk, telling yourself that this is not me, this is just this situation. You got a lot of people, especially those who suffer from depression and all of these other things. They do this a lot. This is me. They own the problems, and they don't recognize that. They don't separate themselves from the situation. And a key component is being able to recognize that it's not you. This is the situation. And that self-talk, having a positive, I like to call it in the book I call it abundant positive language. You need to flood your mind with that. Flood your mind with abundant positive language. And each time you say, it's not me, it's the situation, that's planting that healthy seed of hope. So that when it starts to grow, you no longer look at those situations the same. You no longer look at the argument the same. You no longer look at anything in the same light now, because you have managed your self-talk.
Very, very interesting. And that word I was looking for is discipline. Being disciplined enough to stop, walk away, be the bigger man. And like you say, and that really touched on me, is going home to your family and not being involved in an incident that may put you behind in cuffs in a squad car, what I mean? And that's when lives become really destroyed. Or even end up in an accident, trying to play chicken with somebody on the road. So,
right.
I want to get into failure because I think that's a big part of emotional intelligence. And I know the first time I had you on there, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with failure. That's your first attempt in learning. Mm-hmm. This is how we grow as human beings. This is how we get better. We surround ourselves with like-minded individuals with the same goals, the same admirations, and this is how we get successful. And this is the blueprint. Follow me and I'll take you there. And it comes with, again, a lot of growth, a lot of experience, a lot of years, and it takes a very long time to get to where you're going. Generally, I mean, that's just the way it is. You don't just wake up one day and you have it all figured out. I mean, it takes a lot of trial and error and failure.
Yes.
The first attempt in learning. Now, why do you think people are so afraid to fail?
I think for the most part, people care more about others' opinions of their failure than their actual failure themselves. They would rather not do something to be accepted by everybody rather than failing to do something new and being ridiculed by someone. That's one thing. The other side of things where people fear failure, or why they don't attempt things because of the fear of failure, is because of all of the people before them who've said you probably shouldn't do that because when I tried, I failed. Same thing, when people, try to get ready to join the Marine Corps, well, just remember, there's a high attrition rate. I don't think you can make it as a Marine. And because of that, people don't even try. Or I don't think you should go into that job because, not many people actually pass the bar to actually become lawyers. So you're going to spend all of this money and you're going to go to school and you're not going to pass. And then what? And so what happens is people have this thing in their mind saying, well, you know what? I don't want to have to deal with the hurt that comes along with that. I don't want to have to deal with the ridicule that comes along with it. So I would rather stay in this safe space of comfort. doing something that I know I can do, doing something that I know I can achieve, and not pushing to be able to leave mediocrity and head towards greatness.
You know, a great football coach once told me that nobody is perfect. So we always are going to strive for perfection, but we can't get there because we're not perfect, but we settle for excellence. Strive for perfection
There
and
it is.
settle for excellence is exactly that right there. And you bring up, some points here. People care more about opinions of others. I'm not going to lie. I've been that guy my whole life, and I'm trying to break that. And I've been doing a better job over the last couple of months, and being more of me.
Yeah.
Putting my opinions out there a little bit because my opinions matter. It seems like everybody else can put their opinions out there.
Right.
And I always operate in a professional way. I don't slander. I don't, use, abusive language. I just try to, again, rational talk, debate, discussion. A lot of what's not going on in our country right now. It's very angry. But I've always been a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And is there a lot of guys like that out there that are trying to always please people that really at the end of the day they forget to even please or take care of themselves?
So many people are concerned about everybody else's opinion of them, and these people don't care anything about you. They are literally going from person to person. They're putting it out. Imagine if we operated, people like us who operate with logic, who are just genuinely good people. Imagine if we became the vocal majority instead of the silent minority. Imagine if we became the vocal majority who spoke out, who put these things out there in a positive way. So much would change. But what happening is there's a vocal minority that are flooding the airways. There's so many more thinkers like you and I who are not getting online, who are not starting podcasts, who don't have YouTube channels, who are not openly expressing the way they feel out of fear of what someone else may think about what they said.
Yeah. And regardless of what people say, everybody has, that right to express their feelings, whatever they may be. And a lot of people could find value in that. And a lot of other people may not find value in that. And again, we've gotten to this keyboard warrior type mentality where people aren't thinking, they're just spouting off at the mouth. And again, just like the road rage incidents can happen exactly the same way here on a social media platform or in these, forums, where people aren't thinking, they're reacting. And then they think later and then they say, oh crap, I'm going to delete that because in that state of mind, I was so angry and I wanted everybody to know what my opinion was. Mm-hmm. And then being that people pleaser and always caring and worrying about what people think of you, you go back and say, that could have been a bad decision. I'm going to go back and I'm going to delete that tweet or I'm going to delete that post. And a lot of people live their lives that way. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that are unapologetic, and I totally get it. But, I would say that the majority probably do care and aren't, and don't feel that same way, or at least maybe put up a front that they're stronger than they are. Mm-hmm. And then maybe in the background, they may be suffering in a little bit of silence. We really don't always know the motivations and the mentality and the psychology behind a lot of this. But what you do is, would you say you're really divulging into a lot of psychology?
Absolutely. That's what all of it is. Mm-hmm. All of it's there, both on the positive side and the negative. The things that we experience with people sprouting off whatever they want online, that's because that's their it's psychology, and it's also how do I want to be careful it's psychology, and it's also their philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
We have our way of thinking, our mental psyche, and we have our philosophy, and there's a conflict. But what tends to happen, man, is that people continue to breathe life into all of the negative things they see. It's kind of like all the negative comments, or all the, and this still ties to EQ as well. All the negative things are small little embers. And each response to that negativity becomes the oxygen that we're blowing into it, and it's just causing the fire to grow. And that's the reason why all of these things can become just so chaotic so fast. But if you robbed it of that oxygen, if you starved it of what it needed to catch fire, things would be so much better. And that's what we have to do on the positive side of things. When there's a spark of positivity in you, there's a spark in your relationship, when there's a spark in your job, you need to breathe life into that. That's what you need to put your time and your energy into, not all of the negativity. Because if you do that, it will take up too much space and it affects everything else. So rob it of its energy, starve it of the oxygen, and watch that negative fire go out, and you breathe life into what you need to have.
Man, these podcasts go by so fast when you have somebody like a Dimyas Perdue on. I've got so many other questions I need to get to here, but before we move on, to scoot back a little bit, you said, just because I can't do it doesn't mean you can do it. And we have those friends and those family members that will try to talk you out of a lot of things because they live a different life. They have a different mindset than a Brian Talley, or a different mindset than a Dimyas Perdue or a James Cabarrus, or whatever it may be. Now, because these people are living in their comfort zone, do you feel as if those friends and family are actually oppressing the person that they call friends and family and love that person, in fear of them actually doing something, achieving something that they couldn't do, in fear of them being jealous over what you could accomplish while they're living in a comfort zone?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by them living in their comfort zone and pushing that on you so much, you feel that's the place you're supposed to be. In the book, I talk about killing that. The two things. I talk about the deadly seas, and it's what you need to be able to conquer. You have to conquer the deadly seas, and it's a play on words, right? It's conquering comfort and complacency. Many of our family members, many of the people closest to us, are comfortable and they're complacent. They're happy being exactly where they are because this is safe. When we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's right there. It's at the bottom. I care about my psychological safety, my physical safety. This is what I care about more than anything. And I want you to do the same thing. Well, that's not where I want to be. So you want to keep me there. And comfort and complacency doesn't allow me to elevate to where I'm supposed to be. It doesn't allow me to reach out to actually fulfill what my purpose is on this earth. And by you telling me to stay comfortable, I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want, it's so easy for us to just lay in our bed. You want me to lay in my longevity. You want me to lay in the bed of longevity, lay in the bed of procrastination, lay in the bed of stagnant. And I can't do that because there's so much more in me. And for the people who are dealing with something like that, you need to get up, get out of that situation and conquer comfort and complacency, because nothing can survive in those type of seas.
Love it. And you have referred to your book several times, and my apologies, I should have brought this up a while back, but I think it's good that we kind of saved it a little bit toward the 3/4 waypoint of this podcast, because now people got a little bit of, oh, wow, I'm liking what I'm hearing here. Now, congratulations on becoming an author and getting your book out there. I know it's brand new. Let's talk about the title and how you came up with the title of your new book.
Yeah. I'm extremely proud of this project. You know, I talked about writing this book for years, and people would constantly ask me, "Hey, is the book done?" I'm like, "Nope, it's on the way. It's on the way. It's almost done." Is the book done? No, it's not. And I go and do a keynote somewhere. Oh, that was so good. Do you have a book? And I would always keep saying it was on the way, but I was not doing the work that was needed to be able to finish the book. I fell more in love with the idea of telling people I wanted to write a book than actually writing the book. And that's when I knew in order for me to do what I needed to do, something needed to change. And the change needed to happen in my actions, my behavior, my attitude, and in my focus. In order for me to get to where I was supposed to be, I knew I needed to elevate. I knew I needed to change. And that's where the title was born out of. It was born out of me not doing what I was supposed to do and knowing that I'm not the only person in the world in that position. And so the title of the book became Elevation Requires Change, The Journey Towards Purpose and Fulfillment. And the second portion of that title is so many people are listening to what's being said on social media, defining what success looks like to them. But success looks different for the farmer in Tennessee than it does for the CEO in the C-suite of somewhere in New York. So you have to change in order to be able to elevate, but it needs to be towards what sets your soul on fire, not anybody else. It's your journey towards purpose and what fulfills you. And that's what the book is about.
I want to get this up here so our viewers can see at least where they can get the book and the book title before we move on here. So where is your book available, Dimyas?
Yeah, number one place people shop. You know, you can go on Amazon and type in the title, Elevation Requires Change. And you could also go to bookbaby.com, spelled just like it, www.bookbaby.com. Those are the two places you can get it. But if you happen to find yourself in Barnes and Nobles and Books A Million, they don't have them in store, but you can't order online. But the two places I would send them to would be Book Baby, print on demand, and Amazon could also get you the copies.
There it is right there. This outstanding, and I can tell you, outstanding individual, character unlike a lot of people that you very rarely see folks like a Dimyas Perdue out there. And like I said, I could speak on this man's character, on his professionalism, what he has done in his life from childhood. I mean, really from cradle to where he is right now. I know a lot about this man and the success that you have had. And it's not always been an easy road. And folks, check out his new book. It is at Amazon or it's at bookbaby.com. All you got to do is type in Elevation Requires Change. There it is, the title. Elevation Requires Change. Check it out. Do a search, Amazon, or go to bookbaby.com. I'm going to go ahead and leave that up there. Now, when I said that, look, not everything's been easy for Dimyas. And a lot of people will look at you and say, man, that guy's got it all figured out. He's lucky. Yeah. He's lucky, man. He's living an awesome life, and he's got this, and he's got that. And they don't understand all the work and dedication and all the sleepless nights and all the stuff that comes into being successful. Now, you've gone through a lot of adversity in life. And guys, go back to episode 114, and you will learn a little bit more about the adversity that this young man at the time, growing up, some would say a knucklehead, put him into the United States Marine Corps for a very long time, where he would grow into the man he is today and preach and to teach all of the youth, all these CEOs, all these people in positions of authority, to give them meaningful content to come back and share. So guys, I encourage you, go to episode 114, Dimyas Perdue, and you will understand a little bit more about his story. But again, you've been through a lot of adversity in life. How do you think it's shaped you into the person that you are today, Dimyas?
There's a quote that we used to say to ourselves, both in combat and while on special duty assignments, was that adversity doesn't build character, it reveals character. That's the first thing. And going through all of those adverse situations before it could build anything in me, before I can get to this version of Dimyas today, it needed to expose me to who I really was. It needed to expose me to the fact that I didn't know how to manage my emotions. It needed to expose me to the fact that I had a temper. It needed to expose me to a lot of things. So it revealed my character first before it could build my character. Those experiences, I didn't want them. If I could, and even today, you know, if I could rewrite time and to be able to say, you know what, if I needed to be able to choose this cup or pass on the things that I've gone through, I would still pass on some of the things I've gone through. But guess what? I don't have that ability. I don't have the ability to rewrite my story, but I have the ability to take the experiences that I've gone through and to be able to use them to help everyone else navigate their lives. My story now, the adversity that I've been through, and the way that I share my story, whether in the book or whether on a stage or just general conversations with people, I use that now to be someone else's lighthouse. And if you stop looking at the things that you go through as these things are happening to me, and you think, how could me making it through this benefit somebody else in the long run? Let me not look at this from a selfish standpoint. Let me think about, what can I do with this situation? You know, I rarely talk about this publicly, but when I lost my infant sons in 2020, the world was going through COVID and the world was dealing with chaos. And so we were dealing with COVID. But at the same time, I lost an 8-day-old child and then a 16-day-old child 8 days after. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone in the world. As a father, I thought the depths of depression I would feel came from combat. But there is nothing like losing a child. I've had to hand my child off. I've had to bathe my infant child in a NICU and pass him off. And 8 days later, while being in the funeral home, receiving a phone call saying, we need you to come back to the hospital immediately. And only making it there long enough for my bride to say, I'm here, baby, and for my son to pass away in front of me. In 16 days. And people say, you don't look like what you've been through. I don't. And listen, me being able to tell this story right now is by the grace of God and me building through that adversity, because there were many down days. January 1st this year, they would have been 4 years old, but I don't have them here. But what I do have, I have the memories of them and the promise I made to them. I made them a promise that I would fight and change the world. I made them a promise that I would reach the pinnacle of who I'm supposed to be. I made them a promise that I would give everything to leave my mark on this world, and that their passing would not be in vain, that I would share their story in the hopes of uplifting somebody who's going through the exact same thing or something of that nature. My goal is to be able to impact as many people as I can, to honor them and to honor my name and my family brand. That's why I do what I do.
Incredible. Look, first off, Dimyas, I send my deepest sympathies and condolences to you and your family, your wife. And I do appreciate you getting vulnerable here, with us, because vulnerability is how people can change their lives. And
absolutely,
seeing a man like Dimyas that has been through so much, but you still put on your battle dress every single day, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Life is definitely not easy. It's so hard, and we all go through traumatic type situations, but you have held your head so high and you have carried on that tradition of your family name in an honorable way. And again, guys, it speaks the character of this fine man that I'm honored to call not only a brother,
absolutely,
but a friend. And people are going to look to you every single day not only in your circle or in your community, but really on a national level. And they look to you for inspiration and they look to you for encouragement. And some of these people are like, what does success even what is success? Can you define success and what it means to Dimyas Perdue?
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't say what does it mean to everybody else?
No, I want to know what
Yeah.
success means to
Yeah.
you.
Success to me is first and foremost living a life of virtue, value, being a man of purpose, and never allowing my name to be tarnished by my actions or my behavior. That's the first thing. Always being a man of character, because your character will enter rooms before you and it will stay in rooms long after you leave.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing, is being a man of character. My faith is everything. My faith is everything. Success for me means never deviating from my faith and becoming and accepting something that takes me away from that. The easy route, never changing who I am for money, not changing the way I speak or how I act or anything of that nature. But success, real success for me in the end, looks like sitting around. I'm an old man. My bride still loves me. My children want to spend time with me. My grandchildren want to be around me. I want to leave something bigger and better than me. You mentioned vision earlier when we were talking about your podcast. I want my vision, success for me, is that when I leave this earth, that people say that he gave everything he had for the betterment of humankind. That's what it looks like. My family's intact. I don't care about finances, make it good for you to be able to operate, but that's going to come by virtue of me doing exactly what I need to do. But success is my family being intact and my legacy being known as he cared about making people better. That's what success looks like for me.
I love it. And again, I ask you that because people are going to want to know what success is to you. And they're going to want to know what that definition is. Look, we can all go to Google and type it in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that answer right there, because that is a real answer, and that's a vulnerable answer. And that's an answer that comes with blood, sweat, tears, and experience. And, a lot of the times that, that we may be talking about, people don't want to hear, because they're like, damn, I need to challenge myself more, but it's hard. But it's hard. Guys, everything in life that you are going to do to be successful is not going to be comfortable. So get ready to feel uncomfortable if you want to grow. If you don't want to grow, and if you want to stay stagnant, well, then just keep going along to get along.
Yeah.
But if you want something more in life, you got to get up. You got to get out of that chair. You got to continue to get 1% better each and every day, folks, because this does not come in one false swoop. It takes a lot of baby steps to get to that one giant step, that one giant leap that you may not ever know where that step may take you to the next level. Folks, check out Dimyas's new book. Go to Amazon, type in Elevation Requires Change, learn about his story and more about emotional intelligence and what it could do for you and how it could change your life and perhaps the life of a loved one, a family member, a neighbor, perhaps your local friend at the grocery store. I know I have plenty of friends that check me out, and Rashonda and Anita, great people at the Kroger. We talk all the time, and we talk a lot about life. And folks, you never know who you may be impacting. It's a lot more than just your little circle of friends. And trust me when I say that. Go to bookbaby.com if you also want Another alternative, say you're not on Amazon, maybe you might be the 1% of America that's not on it. Go to bookbaby.com and you can get Dimyas's new book, Elevation Requires Change. We got 2 minutes left, and I have a very important question here that I really want to get your take on. What advice can you have for people right now who are struggling right now to find their place in the world? And to give you an example, you got college kids that are getting out of college. No one's hiring. There's a lot of people that may be searching for jobs. They've got this degree and they're like, man, I just can't seem to get ahead. I went to college. I've got some debt. I'm trying to get a job. I can't even find an apartment because everything's sky high, from mortgages to rent. And then you got food inflation, everything on top. It's like everything is caving in. The roof is falling. The sky is falling. How am I going to get myself out of this? How am I going to start my life? I thought I was doing everything right. What can you do and say to inspire those people who are struggling to find their place in this world?
This is going to sound silly. Deep fried, slow cooked.
Hey, you are from the South.
I'm from the South. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. I can get some fried food immediately. But it's something about slow cooked meat. Deep fried, it can be done in 2 minutes. But that brisket is going to be on for 8 hours.
Low and slow.
But that low and slow process of development, there'll probably be some lessons that need to be learned for you in the process. You can't look at the fact that you're not working the job that you thought you were supposed to have, because if you were supposed to have that job, you would be there. That's not where you were supposed to be. That self-talk can't be that I missed out on this opportunity. They took my job, or I didn't get hired, or I was supposed to graduate by now. If you look at it through that lens, that's a negative lens. The first thing I'm going to tell you is take off those negative glasses, get that new prescription, and start looking at it through another lens. You need to realize that this is a slow cooking process when it talks about getting to success, and appreciate the fact that you're where you are right now and that you woke up because you have another day. So this means you have another opportunity to find that space where you're supposed to be. I didn't get to this point where I am right now, 41 years of age, by being deep fried. I got here by being slow cooked. And that slow cooking process, that's why you hear what you hear coming from me. That's why you see what you see on the other side of this screen. And so I would encourage you to appreciate this slow process that you have right now. You can't rush perfection. You can't rush greatness. You can't rush excellence. Take your time, appreciate the fact that you still have sand pouring from your hourglass, one day at a time, one step at a time, small micro adjustments. You just continue to keep your foot on the gas, moving the needle one day at a time. And eventually everything you see when you close your eyes at night, when you wake, will one day be in front of you, as long as you keep moving.
Trust the process. Dimyas, as always, thank you so much for joining the program. You add so much value to the lives of so many folks out there. And again, big congratulations to you on your new book, Elevation Requires Change. And I wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors. And I know you've got a lot of success, a lot of minds and, like I said, hearts and minds out there that you're going to be changing over your career here again. So congratulations. I thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you. And for anybody that's looking to get specific emotional intelligence type training, go to talentsmarteq.com. You can go there. Plenty of blogs, plenty of information, get training scheduled. That's the place for you to be able to go. talentsmarteq.com. Click on Ask the Experts. You'll see my beautiful face right there, and we can connect. We can talk about helping you elevate your levels of emotional intelligence, or we can elevate, which requires change. Your choice. But either way, you'll